Hey Vijay, thank you very much.
Hey, Vijay.
Wonderful to be back with you in the coach narrative series. I think we did one sometime. We've been doing it for a couple of times, I think, in the last couple of
Yeah,
years. So we had, and I think last year was all about power and responsibility. I remember we talking about
correct.
coaches, you have a sense of power and how do you act in a responsible way with that power, I think was what we did last time.
Yeah,
So I wanted to kind of, just like our background shows, I wanted to have this new series on this coach narratives called Lamp, Ladder, and Lifeboat. So, as executive coaches and team coaches, we work with clients and basically a lot of professionals to help them navigate different complexities, sometimes being the lamp, sometimes being the ladder, and sometimes being the lifeboat. So, from your experience, Vijay, I wanted to utilize the next 20 minutes between us to understand how do we unfold and bring out these dimensions for our coaches by, by showcasing the lamp or giving being there as the ladder or just putting in the lifeboat in the choppy seas to help them navigate it. So that's what this next 20 minutes is going to be, Vijay, and I'm very grateful
wonderful.
that you've given us this time.
My pleasure, Priya. Anytime. First of all, I should say that it's a great topic. Everything starts with an L for leadership. So
Yes.
there's another fourth L that is coming in also.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, Vijay, the first thing I have is from the lamp perspective. So, as a coach, how have you helped your coaches illuminate using by being the lamp for them?
Yeah. So let's look at it from a coach's point of view, right? Because coaching is generally starting with somebody being in a slightly disempowered state and getting on to the place where they are more empowered, right? So disempowered doesn't mean that they are struggling. They have grown to an extent in such a way that whatever resources they were having or what has worked for them so far suddenly becomes not enough. I think that's where the whole thing comes in, right? So the apparent darkness that comes in, it's not actually the actual darkness, it is a perceived darkness.
Mm.
Correct. So I think as a coach, what happens here is that here is a great opportunity for us to help the coachee to really understand that it is not a darkness, what do you call it, a pitch dark per se. It is like you have been having the light so far. Suddenly you came to a place where you need little more light. I think that is the first part of it, right? And having said that, now here is somebody where we can have a conversation or taking the person to a stage where they are able to look at, for want of a better word, light at the end of the tunnel. So the
Mm.
tunnel looks dark at that stage, but if as long as that person is able to say that the light is there, and there is someone who has sort of, is the co-traveler for doing the journey, I think that makes a huge difference for the person who is going through a temporary darkness. That's how I put it.
Okay. So you're just kind of helping them. It's not that they're always in a disempowered state. It's just that certain life circumstances or situations makes them feel disempowered and just
Correct.
acting, showing the light that they are able that can help them step up, right?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Vijay, I want to understand, have you had, while you work with your coaches, how have you discovered what has extinguished their light in that in different circumstances?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, generally speaking, the light doesn't get extinguished. That's the first part, right? Because that there's a light, and that's the light which has basically taken the person to be where they are at that stage. So it would I would not be very comfortable to say that light is gone off. No, it's not. What happened is that probably the lamp that they had, okay, is not having sufficient intensity at this stage. It needs more intensity. Or sometimes the lamp could have been covered by dirt unintentionally because of less maintenance or less self-care. So when we look at it from that perspective and have that conversation from that perspective, the person already sees that, oh, it's not that I don't have, I already have it. I need more self-care. That's one option. The
Mm.
second thing would be saying that, all these things have worked for me to come up to this stage, but to go further, I need even more powerful light. which is what I should really get into, make it step. How do we step up is how the whole thing works. So that is how I see the conversation with the coach.
Wonderful, wonderful. Are there any recent experiences that helps you that you could capture here for our audience, Vijay, where your coachee has navigated this light or lamp metaphor beautifully?
Yeah. So one of the person that I am working with now is a vertical head, basically a director of one particular vertical, right? And this person had been doing most of the thing is on the domain itself, with some broadening has happened at some stage, right? But what happens is that suddenly this person is getting elevated into across a level where it is new for that person's domain. Like it's nothing to do with the domain knowledge. It's got completely to do with the strategy, the business, and things like that. So this person was having some. What happened is the natural tendency was to bank on whatever has worked for us so far. But suddenly you are in a landscape now where the landscape has changed so much, and whatever tools that you had so far, being a subject matter expert and being the most knowledgeable person in the room and things like that, that's not even the context that we are in now. So all that it needed at that stage is to really understand that the game has changed, or the landscape has changed, and then recognize that we are at an inflection point, and make sure that we reframe the whole thing in such a way that in this particular scenario where we are in this opportunity that we have, what is the growth that needs to happen, and it need not be a linear growth. It could be a growth in a different direction. It can be sort of bringing in some strength which has been lying dormant earlier and things like that. So that is one of the examples that comes to my mind on a person who has risen up to a very senior level. And when he gets into the ultimate seniorship level, there that person has got a struggle. And this happens in every stage. For example, if you are a individual producer to a team leader, it's the same story, but in a smaller scale. So the life teaches us, and as we grow, we basically expand. That's how it is.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Vijay. Now, when we look at the ladder as a metaphor, I mean, we coach leaders. Now, from your experience, Vijay, how have you or what have you discovered about your coaches when about them getting stuck in the middle? Sometimes when we want to climb up the ladder, somewhere they get stuck. So, what have you discovered? What really causes this for coaches?
Yeah. So I think basically what happens is we are all driven by a certain, or want of a better word, and I think it's like an operating system that we have for ourselves. In a way, we go back and tell ourselves saying that what is possible, what is not possible. And during the coaching journey, it's all about breaking those barriers and the perceived glass doors and things like that. So when you're in that journey, because of different reasons, for example, driven by your own, let's say the commitment to grow, or the organization giving an opportunity for taking this coaching and things like that, a person would come enthusiastically. And when they start working on things and start looking at the result, and they basically take a couple of steps on the ladder, right? So what happens is that from the ground, they start moving in elevation.
Yeah.
Now, at some point of time, they look back and say, oh my God, the elevation is there and I'm feeling jittery about that. Somewhere there is a thing saying that, I'm not a person who could fly. The fear of height will be there. And probably sometimes, people go through a journey wherein it just gets overwhelming because, the elevation comes with more perspectives. You can see more distance than what you were seeing earlier. So if you're not properly supported, those are the moments when we can get completely, overwhelmed by whatever is happening. And that is a possibility. So when those things are coming up, that is when, if you are still in the coaching session, the coach would be able to spot those things and then address the specific things related to breaking that glass ceiling or the limiting belief. And then the new identity is born and the person takes more confident steps going forward.
Mm-hmm. Vijay, oftentimes when you rightly said, there is a sense of overwhelm when you're moving up the when you climb up the ladder to gain different the perspectives vary from the ground level. So, what have you really asked, let's say, a question to your coachee in such instances that has really made them pause and think? Is there something that has shifted for them with your question? Is there something that you can
Yeah.
share with us?
I think one of the powerful things that came up very recently, I had this conversation with someone who was sort of in this position, right? And said that, I don't feel comfortable doing this one and I don't want to continue. That's exactly what that person said, when, fear of height, right? And then we had a good conversation to really say that one is that are you doing your best with the opportunity that has been given to you? That's the first question. It's more from a ethical perspective or a moralistic perspective to say the self responsibility and things like that. Yeah. So that is one thing where that person made a little thinking and then said that, but yeah, I don't think I'll do justice for what is there, but it's too much for me. I don't want to take it any further.
Mm.
And that was the thing. And we had few more conversations at some point of time. Yeah, earlier conversation he shared about his family and things like that. And at one point of time, I asked a question saying that if your son is in this position and he gives up prematurely, what would you think about that particular thing? What would you tell your son? So that was the first question. So perspective suddenly changed for him to really look at it, saying that, what does that mean? What the future is there, and whether that person is reaching the potential or not, and what all the things that he would say. And then with that perspective, was able to come and put on his own context, and then see what he wants to do. And the third thing was also about from a point of view saying that if you want to be a good example for your growing up son, is this something which would help your son or it'll not help? I think that things had really made him to really change the perspective, and things happened after that. That's one thing that I remembered just now.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, good examples and good. I think sometimes it's the frame from which you see that landscape, right? And if you're
Right.
able to keep it from a very safe space,
Yeah.
then it makes a very big difference in the way we will address the complex situation. And which leads me to
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
Vijay.
Before we go further, I thought I'll add this also. I think end of the day, it comes to the purpose. As long as we are able to tie the things to a certain purpose, which means so much for that person, things change.
Absolutely right. But this particular topic makes me reflect on one more question, which I should ask you, Vijay. How do you, as a coach, establish a container of safety for your coachees, especially when you just said, right, they want to give up or they don't, they feel absolutely demotivated, they're in a very demotivated state. Now, how do we establish a container of safety?
Yeah, so it's a lengthy process, I would say. Basically, when you start, right, you are two strangers who are coming in. Of course, you would have a chemistry meeting, but that's still on a superficial level. You basically broadly get an idea saying that can I work with the person? Yes, no, and things like that. And that's a good starting point. But having done that, and when we sit together in a room and then start having the conversation, it needs a lot of uh, intentional intentional mindset, intentional effort, and intentional demonstration of a few qualities that coaching teaches us. These things are related to building a good psychological safety, building the trust, and things like ability to not judge, and then have that listening thing and things like. So all the coaching competencies that we learn is actually put into use there. When done properly, things don't happen on a magical thing like in a first thing, but basically what happens, you slowly earn that trust that is coming in, right? When that happens, and typically in the second session or so, I will see that people will be very comfortable to open up.
Hmm.
And after that, things will become more productive. And I think one of the things that also helps me is that the contracting I do at the start of the thing. I basically tell them upfront, saying that, what you can expect from me is to show things as they are, what I see. And I will ask explicit permission to say that, are you okay with being shown the mirror? And when that person says that, yes, they want to do it, and they will confirm saying that that is something that's going to help their progress and things like that, they are actually bought into the thing and coming in with the thing saying that they're feeling safe and confident that whatever we are discussing about, the confidentiality is maintained and things like that. So all these things get into the thing. So I think it's a concentrated effort that we have to do multiple things. And at some point of time, when there is a need to sort of give the hard message, so hard message for the benefit of the coachee, then I go back to the contracting and say that, hey, remember that we had the thing. This is a woman. Are you okay if I have to say this thing? And that person says, yeah, then you can go ahead. Then that basically helps the person to really, run. I think then they, at some point of time, very early in the stage, they understand that this person has my interest in their heart, and there is no axe to grind. So when that is very evident for them, things start happening. That's what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Nice, Vijay. I wanted to also check, like, always, coaching is always about helping them push their boundaries in a safe way. So, how do you motivate your coaches, the leaders that you work with, to take risks? Um, I mean, even in the conversations, as well as when they get back, because the reality is when they get back out of the session, right? And so, how do they take risks?
Yeah. So what I have seen happening, and this is the practical thing, right? So what happens is that it happens in stages, one after the other, one after the other. So initially, it's a micro experiments that they do. The micro experiments are happening within the coaching session, wherein there might be role plays or whatever and things like that, and there might be situations wherein the coach will try their version of micro experiment with the coach to start with, right? And that's a safe space. And probably we also learn from on how things went and things like that, and based on that we get some idea to really take that feedback and improve whatever is happening and things like that. So that's the first stage of it. After that is over, then the coach generally takes it to their team. Generally, they start with the direct reports and then with the peer level before they start putting up at upstairs also. So that is the progression that happens. Like every time they do, the muscles get more strengthened and they feel a little more comfortable in taking that thing and move forward. Not that it goes all smoothly. There will be some pushbacks. But the point is, I think when the pushback happens or when things go wrong, there is an opportunity for the coachee to come back to the coach and have a conversation to say that, hey, this is what I tried and this is what happened. And then we have an opportunity to look at it from outside in perspective. And when you do that, you make sense of it. It's not about me. It's about, that particular situation. I'm not used to doing that particular thing. When that was coming up, the person didn't know what is happening. And that person responded this way and things like that and also. So he makes the coachee makes things, sense of the whole thing in a constructive manner. And when that happens, then they understand, again, it's a broadening of vision that happens. And when that happens, automatically the understanding goes up and they feel more comfortable to take even more bigger steps, larger steps and things like that. So that's what I've seen.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, Vijay, as a coach, when you see your coaches, they tend to fall down in the sense, even from their commitments, they tend to feel weak while, sometimes emotions take over. So when they fall down in your sessions, well, how do you catch your coaches, Vijay, as a
So you're right. It's like the journey goes on, but of course there'll be some occasional the old habits die hard, right? So there'll be some instinct thing that happens there, wherein the old thing would come in and things like that. Again, I think what is really becomes very powerful is that to sort of let the person know what is happening and ask them what is happening. So they have to make sense of what is happening, right? And then we can basically ask a more of reflective person comes in saying that this is my goal and these are the things that I have done and I'm sort of be progressing. But with this happening, is it pushing me forward or slipping backwards? It's more of a self-awareness that comes in. Most of the time when this is shown, they immediately catch themselves and say that, oh, that the self-awareness kicks in. And when the awareness kicks in, automatically, since we are still in the session, there is more about reflection about, what caused that thing happening. Like, most of the time when the slip up happens, it is just because that they don't feel safe for whatever reason. Only when, our dark sides come out when we are stressed. The stress could have been due to whatever situation that is happening, or what has not been discussed so far, and things like that. So when we go back and address that thing, that's again another broadening, another layer of broadening that happens, wherein you don't see this particular goal in isolation, but also look at saying that, well, how the context, how the environment is sort of, has got an impact on you, and how do you want to shield that particular thing going forward. So those are the things. It's a learned behavior that happens.
Okay.
Finally, I also think that there is even though the coachee is coming in from their own context and they go through their development journey, end of the day, they go to an organizational culture. So if the culture continues to be in a different manner, it's a little difficult for them to sustain whatever is happening. And those are the times where we have to have a conversation with the organization to sort of broaden the scope and bring in something to do with the entire leadership team or the organization culture and things like that. So that's what I've seen.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's another typical issue that comes up in coaching where sometimes coaches get carried away. They would, it's an important aspect of the coaching or the coach to help the coachee to keep the focus around the session so that they're able to get to a desired outcome for whatever they walked in with as a challenge. Now, there's a tendency many coaches would rat hole into it, and we may, as coaches, be very polite and listen to it. Now, in such situations, what are your thoughts on how should we handle it as coaches, and what would be really good, the best way to approach it for the from the coachee's perspective?
Yeah. It's a very practical thing, Priya, and most of us go through this particular thing, right? And one thing that I have found really working is that in all the conversations, or let's say most of the conversations that I have I bring in the thing about the proactiveness and sort of talking about the end in mind. So that happens in right through the engagement, right? So that is one thing that happens. I think the second thing that also helps is that one is to have a goal for the entire engagement, and the other one is to have a goal for that particular session. So that is also like at the start of the session, you really look at saying that what is the outcome that we are looking at, how does it look like, and what does success look like, and things like that. So I think the more we do it in a systematic manner and consistent manner, you have a more opportunity to really say that if things like this are happening, there's a moment where the mirror can be shown and say that, is this taking you to the destination that you are planning to? Yes or no? I think that's what it is needed. A nudge there about that the thing, and the self awareness will kick in, and then the journey continues. So that's one thing that I found powerful.
Correct. I mean, getting them to, keeping check on their own self-awareness during the process and ensuring that we just provide the nudges, right? And keep
Correct.
that focus into the.
Correct. Correct. So it's a journey, as you know. Early stages, probably you will have more of the push would happen, or at least the pull and sort of things. But then what happens at about second session, third session onwards, the coach sort of withdraws from the whole thing. The coachee does the whole thing, and if there is a digression somewhere happening, or drifting that is happening, then probably some nudge here or there will basically take it to the place where the coachee wanted to go.
Correct. Now, there's a lot about so today every leader is in navigating choppy seas, and there is a lot that's happening, one within and then outside. So how do you help your coaches make sense of their headwinds, Vijay?
Yeah. So I think you're right. Right now the thing is like those days of certainty and things are gone. We have no idea on what's going to change tomorrow when based on whatever happened yesterday or today also. So we are in a fast-paced world here, and from that point of view, the change is sort of seen as normal now and is expected also. when in the early days, is probably, change would be something which hits you without even thinking about it. But now I think we are sort of anticipating the change also. We know that it is coming. Only question is when and what form. That's the only thing. So every day we are expecting some change and things like that. So that happens, right? So headwinds, when you look at that, headwinds are something wherein, again, it's again a perception. When things happen, it is shown as a challenge to start with because it's unfamiliar. We don't have a solution yet at that stage, correct? But then what happens is that you really look at it saying that, okay, this is a challenge, apparent challenge, but what is the opportunity here? Behind all the challenges, there is a concealed opportunity. And when you're able to spot that and able to leverage that, suddenly the headwinds become something which helps you to start flying. Unless there's a wind for you, the plane can't even fly, right? So that is something which I have really found people to really, gain that perspective, saying that not all headwinds or uncertainties or challenge or difficulties. There is an opportunity, and it's about taking the perspective to really ask the question, saying that what is the opportunity? And look on that thing, look at the possibilities, and then the possibilities start looking at rather than problem solving.
Wonderful, wonderful. One final question I want to ask you with Vijay is about um, when you, as a coach, how would there's a certain way in which you see as to what role you play. What are some metaphors that will define you and your coaching practice, Vijay?
Uh, I mean, it comes from different angles here. So one thing that I'm seeing from a let's say if it's a bird, for example, I look something like a peacock. The peacock is something which has got a very variety of things that it can offer, right? And all of them blend together to create something which is fantastic. It's not like one color, but you got multiple things. But with that, you create a magic. So that is one thing that comes in as more from a tools perspective, the learnings perspective, the philosophy perspective, and things like that. You have such a variation. A blend of this and this and this will create something which was not existing. It can be completely fascinating and a new experience. So that is one thing that comes in. And I think as a journey, if you look at it, it is more like a person who is with you, supporting you, and going along with you, right? So that way, I would really look at it. I'm going back to my working days. In aviation, you have a pilot and a co-pilot, right? So basically, it's about putting the person in the pilot seat while the other person serves as a co-pilot, not because that person is learning, but basically saying that a person who could see the other person grow. So it's like I think probably like a see let's not take it literally here, but it's more about someone who has done lots of flying hours. A senior pilot has done that and done all sorts of things. That person sitting there and then looking at how the the pilot emerges. I think that is another metaphor that comes in for me.
When they get it, you feel you have you. I mean, there's a certain sense of connection to your purpose, right? That's what is this space to.
Correct. And if when I sit in that seat, if I have somebody who is like, I know that they have, I'm sort of a safe hands, and there is somebody who can support me at any point of time, even if I make a mistake or whatever. And the whole thing becomes saying that instead of I can take the risk, I can do things, I can learn. For what purpose? Because I have a person who's got such a solid experience and things like that, what I can learn from and things like that, right? So I think that puts us in a place where we can emerge into a different league of the professional that where we started. That's how I see it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful to see because as each one of us have different metaphors that can help us resolve what we do, and sometimes it helps us also in our own reflection as to where we are in that. So it kind of gives us the anchors, right? So great to hear you. I mean, I love the one that you spoke about peacock, especially from skill set and the tool set that you bring, that multi things that you bring on board to help people move from one fixed point to a different point, right? And and are also about being the pilot and helping the co-pilot become the pilot, right? It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Wonderful, wonderful, Vijay. I should say thank you very much. And
my pleasure.
and it's a great opportunity that although we believe that coaching is from the space of not knowing, as coaches, it's great to understand our how we have evolved and developed and how we see the landscape when we help different types of leaders cross their
Absolutely.
and reach where they have to go. So it's wonderful to be connecting with you, Vijay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Raghunathan. Thank you so much.